All right. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Manifest It All podcast. And I am incredibly thrilled and excited to introduce my guest to you today. So here we go. Asil Toksal from Evolution 1 receives and transmits transformational energy and spoken wisdom from higher and non dual sources of consciousness. This benevolent energy and wisdom is an unconditional gift intended to support humanity's evolution. Like many initiates drawn to the spiritual path, Asil's journey began with the realization that the life he was living lacked meaning and purpose. Although he had reached a high level of professional success, he found himself unsatisfied and depressed. He began to question the meaning of life and existence, which spurred his journey of spiritual discovery. After nearly 2 decades of spiritual dedication, 6 years ago, his connection to higher forms of consciousness opened. Through this connection, he found a deeper sense of self, which led to the inner peace and fulfillment he always felt was possible. He's continued to personally transform, heal, and move into greater alignment. The natural extension of this state of being became his service to humanity. So, with that being said, welcome so much to the Manifest It All podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. What a beautiful intro.
Yes. Well, is there anything you want to add to that that's coming through for you right
Hmm. I think the most important thing is probably to add that I am just another human being that is just happened to stumble upon some connections and found deep fulfillment in that connection and almost a sense of purpose and service to humanity that allows me to be fueled and nourished, and in continuation, extension of that, fuel and nourish others in their journey of growth and evolution.
now? I love that. And that's one of the reasons I'm very excited to have you onto the podcast and have our conversation today. And as you were speaking and sharing that, one of the first questions that actually came through for me is do you Do you think that every single human being could possibly have the same level of awakening that you did in this lifetime? Or do you think perhaps the soul needs to be at a certain level of evolutionary awareness where it's meant to awaken in this lifetime versus other people still have some lifetimes to go?
Fantastic question. And I think it's um, neither, but
Okay.
both.
Okay.
So the way I believe and the way I'm communicated to with the guidance that I have is that we used to have a certain way of operating in this human form. We would learn as souls through many different lifetimes, through many different cycles. We would evolve through realizations, and as a soul, we would continue returning. And if certain big lessons or karmic lessons or realizations weren't complete, they would continue in the next lifetime. They would continue in different constellations, different lineages, and so on and so forth. And these cycles that are sometimes thousands of years old and still moving, there is an inflection point that we're at right now. There is a drive, not just from us as humans, but from also higher powers and the rising of energies that's happening, that these cycles are being accelerated. So learnings and realizations are becoming faster and faster. Karmic lessons are coming into place or closing faster. And it gives an opportunity for closure and growth that we've never had before. So in that sense, yes, I do believe everyone has the capability to develop in the way that I have, or in their own way, to become their highest potential version. And some of these karmic lessons that everyone has to go through, they're also being accelerated and sometimes even exempt. So what I mean with that is I've had clients where, in the beginning, I used to have clients where the guides would say, well, you can't interfere with this particular situation that this person is going through. They have to learn a lesson. To
Mhm.
complete that, they have to come to a certain realization, and then the healing will occur. And then I would be a little bit unsatisfied about it, and they would be, okay, well, what do I have to learn? And sometimes they would come to that learning and the healing would finalize and integrate. Lately, I've been seeing that more and more exemptions are being granted for people to complete things as their mission
Mm.
to serve at a greater level to all of humanity becomes more important than them completing a specific lesson.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And so it's for the
And
greater good rather
yeah,
than the individual good.
how fascinating is that?
Yeah.
That the operating system of being human and in this human form, in this human society at this time is actually changing. Like we're getting an operating system upgrade, which is
Yeah.
changing the possibilities for us.
Which I love because I know that I incarnate in times of massive growth and transformation on planet Earth. And so I'm like, let's do this. Let's evolve collectively in a completely different way. And for anybody listening that's curious how to do so, because I know we're going to talk about manifestation and where that desire comes from and maybe overcoming limiting beliefs. But for someone that's listening right now that potentially wants the fast track, what advice would you give them?
Fast tracks are good, but they're not for the faint of heart.
Agreed.
So the disclaimer that I'll say is if you are willing and ready to accelerate your process, make sure everything in your vehicle, in your instrument, in your human form is aligned to be able to sustain that acceleration. It's almost like you can't take a regular car onto a racetrack. You may run into some problems. But if it's aligned and attuned to be on a accelerated way, it can be driven like this. And in that way, our human vessel is like that. If
Mhm.
we prepare properly, if you establish a proper internal alignment with practices, with processes, with spiritual, emotional, mental, physical healing, growth, alignment, then we can also ask for acceleration, and then we will have that acceleration. And that'll create incredible growth and incredible manifestation
Mhm.
capabilities.
So I love what you said about asking, right? We need to ask for the accelerated acceleration. We're still free will beings here in a free will universe. And you also brought up the good point of energetic cleansing, mental cleansing, spiritual cleansing, physical cleansing. Like, how do you
Mhm.
make your vehicle as
Yeah.
high vibe as possible, right? The race car on the racetrack. And so, in those different categories, I would imagine, myself included, the majority of human beings tend to struggle more with the mental aspect and maybe the spiritual. What have you seen as some of the bigger challenges for human beings to move through?
So we are currently in a societal period and phase where the mind has gotten incredible authority, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's kind of driving this whole process in such a way that people think they are their mind,
Right.
and humanity evaluates, judges, and gives value to the mental capacity that a person brings, or mental productivity that a person brings. Obviously, that is a very limited and narrow way of seeing the value of a human being and what we are as holistic beings. We have so much more to give, we have so much more to offer. So, in that sense, I would say very simple in the things that we have been taught for thousands of years. can we get to a moment of silence and presence in which we are really becoming one with the moment of our being that is no longer driven by the unprocessed elements of the past, no longer driven by the projections into the future and the fears of the future, but really just here and now. And when we establish that strength and presence in the moment, that's where all our power comes through to create many possibilities into the future. If we are, in terms of our mind, also emotional and spiritual body, we're split far into the past and far into the future. What will come through is a lot of these unprocessed pieces that will direct our reality to respond to who we are in the moment. That's why I believe this expansion, this mastering of the silence in the moment is so critical, and it is nothing new that I'm talking about here. It's thousands of years old and it's still valid.
So then that begs the question, how?
Yes.
And I'm sure it's a work in process, but
Yes.
how? How do we be so present to what is
Mhm.
and also be conscious creators and manifest what it is that we want? How do we also let go of the baggage of the past and not project negatively into the future, but positively into the future?
Yes. So when we ask the question,
Mhm.
when I close my eyes and take a couple of breaths, why am I not present? Why are my thoughts going 100 miles? Why am I thinking about the things that happened and my emotional state of being, the misalignments I hold, the conditioning I have, the beliefs I hold, and how is that tainting my perspective of reality and my perspective of the future? And that is driving how we create a reality and how we create the future. The question is, in the moment, how do I come to these realizations, complete these cycles of the past,
Right.
right? So I can be more and more and more present. Well, in the past, it used to be I, or reality, will consistently create a reality for me to process the past that is unprocessed. So I will repeat manifestations that will teach me over and over and over again until the lesson was complete, right? Who has not seen, dating the same partner over and over again that represents the parent that we have an incomplete relationship with?
Mhm.
Or going into the same job and having the same constellations and dynamics that we've had in all the other jobs before, and so on and so forth. And that is because reality responds to the unprocessed. Okay, so, but if we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to consistently be creating a reality and living this life over and over again for thousands
Right.
of years, right?
We want to learn the
Thousands of
lessons and
cycles.
move on.
How can we do this faster?
Yeah.
So in the guidance that I receive, the guides have been talking about, well, there is a way for you to come to realizations and complete cycles of the past by being truly present and entering a state of observation of all the things unprocessed, until in those expanded states of consciousness, these realizations emerge, they come to surface, and they integrate in one's being. And when these realizations come, my presence changes and my reality responds in a different way. Things change. I manifest reality in a different way. So we are incredible processors, like the mind processes the past, the heart processes the past, the body processes the past, but spirit or consciousness is the most powerful processor of all of them. So if we can get into a state where we allow our consciousness to process, that's when we can accelerate things.
Mm, I love this. Okay. So, so let's still then break this down even further into tangible, right? So someone's listening, they're like, okay, I'm feeling so inspired to, let's say, dial up the meditation practice, to get back to the present moment, to connect with source. Like, here we go. What should I do?
Mhm. So in a very simple sense, of course, we can establish a meditation practice. There's so many different forms of meditation, and there's, mindfulness meditation, there's moving meditation, there's breath work, and so on and so forth, right? I found that, first of all, none of these pathways are wrong. They're all valid pathways to coming to realizations which enable better or more expanded creation in life. In the work that I do, we receive support of an energetic nature from higher realms that are basically saying, well, humanity is going through a major awakening process, and we want to support humanity in this particular way. So we enter collectively as a community, sometimes hundreds of us, sometimes thousands of us, at the same time into a communal energetic field in which we are present, and energetic adjustments are delivered so that we can receive these realizations faster, and something shifts in our consciousness so that we can become more and more present in the meditations. So meditations are potentiated like 1,000-fold rather than just sitting by ourselves alone, because of the group field and the higher level support we receive. I'm sure you've experienced some of this. Some people call it
Absolutely.
upgrade processes,
Hmm.
some people call it downloads, or
Hmm.
whatever it is, right? New programs that we receive. So there is definitely something happening where we get higher consciousness support in our evolution. And that is the way I have seen how this can become really accelerated and delivers incredible results.
So let's go backwards. When you were at the height of your professional success and yet filled with depression or anxiety or just not happy, you realized, wow, the money or the accolades really wasn't providing me that satisfaction and fulfillment.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about that time period in your life,
Sure.
because I imagine some people listening are like, oh, Asil, you're so far beyond. I couldn't possibly get to that point. And yet
Yeah,
you have. So tell me about that period in your life, if you don't mind.
of course. So when we enter a society that is established in a certain way, that establishes rules and values, and if you achieve this, then you'll be happy, there's certain programs that are running that basically claim that you will receive a certain reward or prize if you follow the societal guidelines, right?
Right.
And then everyone, or a lot of people, when we are conditioned, we follow that program.
Mm.
We follow it to the detriment, until maybe some of us until the end of our lives, to maybe at some point retire and have a break from the running in a hamster wheel forever, right?
Mhm.
So it's somehow a promise that very few people truly achieve. Now, let's imagine you achieve that which society says is going to make you happy. I've met so many people that have achieved, including myself, what would be considered a societal success. And then people come and they pat on your shoulder and say, well done, badge
Did
of
it.
honor, you can carry that now, you've achieved this, you've sold the company, or you've gotten this success, or here you have got a beautiful wife and a dog and a beautiful house, and you can afford all the food in the world. And I'm not saying these are not achievements, they truly are, and they may even separate you from 99% of most of the population. Yet, the fulfillment, the gap within our being is still there. Because the soul wants a different kind of achievement. The soul wants an awakening. There is a call from within that cannot be compensated with or filled with a worldly achievement. It will, for a period of time, sometimes a very short period of time, give you fulfillment and pleasure and feeling whole for a very short period of time until you start seeing, oh, it seems like I have to run for the next thing now.
Yeah.
Because it's not enough that I achieved this. Look, there's other people that have achieved this and this and this and this.
Never
So it's a
ending.
never-ending story.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get to a place of no longer feeling empty or having a hole in our being that needs to be compensated with external achievements?
Mm-hmm.
So I was in that place. And I thought, well, hold on a second. I'm being told stories that everyone believes. They're not telling me out of bad intention. They're not trying to mislead me, but they don't know better.
Mm-hmm.
There is a certain blindness that is within society about what will give me happiness, and they haven't gotten it themselves.
Yeah.
They just believe it.
Yeah, good
Okay?
point. Yeah.
And okay, well, I'm not going to make them wrong for not knowing. I'm just going to go on an exploration myself. I'm going to start to see who are the most happiest, most aligned, most connected people that I can find. What are the practices that they do? What lineages they come from? And how did they get there?
Mm.
And that kind of like took me on a journey of exploring different cultures, different religions, different heritages, different lineages. And I started to have this, spiritual opening that happened to me, more than 7 years ago, where I had a direct communication with what I would consider angelic beings. And, one of them said, my name is Emmanuel, and I'll guide you through this process. I didn't even know who Emmanuel is. I don't have a concept of like, angelic beings this, angelic beings that. But this communication felt so reverent and so pure and so unconditionally loving. I had never experienced anything like it before. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to listen to what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you have been preparing for this work for a long time, and we're going to work through you. And humanity is going through a major awakening. So if you're still up for it, we're going to adjust your vehicle so you can be an instrument of our work, so we can bring the wisdom and the energy and the love that we have for humanity's evolution through you. And I said, okay, let's try.
Game on. Use me. I'm
That's right.
available.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. And so then how did it evolve from there? When did you start becoming a teacher? When did you start creating courses and programs? How did that shift and change for you?
Mm-hmm. So in the beginning was this, holy cow, this is so big.
Mhm.
I have no idea how me as, single individual can make a difference of that magnitude that they're projecting onto me.
Mhm.
And they said, don't worry about that. We're just going to work on you so that you become the most aligned version. You become the most purified version that you can be over processes, over upgrades, over cleansings, and so on and so forth, so that you as an instrument can show what is possible, and we can deliver individuals an experience, a direct spiritual experience that will show them what is possible for them. And in that sense, I see myself as a conduit, as an instrument to a divine force, but not really as anyone's master or teacher. I'm just a guide, a conduit, just like you, where messages and energy come through that support people in their journey of awakening and evolution.
Simple as that. That's all.
It's simple as that.
And yet, how to not get distracted? How to not get distracted by the 3D, by this amazing planet that we live on as human beings. Like, yes, we are spirit in body, but I find for me, I can very much get distracted by what is in a really good way, but of course, sometimes in a challenging way. Like you said, mindset can be the challenge for human beings because we put so much emphasis on the mind, on the intelligence, on the information we have gleaned over our lifetime. So when things are, let's say, challenging, or when you're too caught up in the what is in the earthly realm rather than, let's say, the spiritual realm, what advice would you have or what practices could one follow?
When we live a human life, there are many circumstances and relationships and dynamics we deal with. Everyone has plenty of things that they're experiencing in the moment. Some things are longer term things that they've been carrying with them, maybe even like multiple generations, right? Some things seem to be like momentary things, and some things are more like societal things, topics that are currently evolving that we're all processing together. And so being able to take a moment to see that we are, as a soul, as an eternal soul, in a temporary body, going through learning experiences and finding ways to separate ourselves from that story for a moment, to allow that story to potentially accelerate and complete and come to a learning and conclusion from the perspective of consciousness rather than living it out. I think that is a key moment for any individual to see, okay, I could go down that path and be quote unquote distracted or be caught up in the extrapolations of life, or I could take a moment and potentially live out this entire timeline in that one moment. The glimpse, just the blink of an eye, I experience an entire lifetime. And I may come to multiple realizations in that moment. And when I return back, it seems like I've lived that and I don't have to live it again. So, what new possibilities emerge as a result of that? How has my being expanded now that I have completed certain learnings and realizations? Now, that sounds easier said than done,
Of
right?
course.
I'm going through a relationship problems and then we're having discussions and heated emotional debates and so on and so forth. And some things are so deeply programmed from our
Yeah.
heritage and from our lineage. And here's Asil who says, well, take a moment to breathe and meditate and it'll get better. People are like, yeah, right.
Right. You're like, easier said than done.
Easier said than done. But I have also seen incredible transformational possibilities for everyone who has devoted and dedicated a period, even if it's small periods of time, to transformation. I've seen great transformation within a couple weeks, that people are unrecognizably different. The way they feel, the way they think, the way they operate reality, the way they operate the human life. And for me, that is liberation. It's true liberation.
So can you give me an example, perhaps, of one of these past people that you've seen transform?
Yeah, sure. Well, there is like hundreds and hundreds of examples I can think of. And I can say, for example, I've noticed people coming in, they are, let's say, in traditional, corporate jobs. And this one particular person, you know, high level corporate job, family, kids, and all of that. And ultimately living a very fulfilled or provided for human life, but something inside is missing, right? Something inside is missing to feel truly alive and expanded. And when this person went through the processes of healing and growth and some of these courses that we have, they started to feel more and more the true self that they have rather than the programming that they have been living.
Mm.
Okay? When they
Mhm.
start to feel the true self that they have and they find themselves in the construct that they are in, family and corporate, then comes a big decision. Do I
Yeah.
continue what I do? Or do I change everything to what is more aligned to who I am?
Yeah. And that's a
There
hard
is no
decision.
right and wrong here. You can truly take your new alignment and live that life that you have. Or you can say, well, this constellation has worked for me for so long, but right now it may no longer be aligned, and I see a shift coming into my life. And some of them change their lives. And they feel inspired and motivated to change, not because I tell them to change or they
Mhm.
get divine inspiration to change, but it is truly internally no longer aligned.
Yeah. They
So
just,
that's one example, right? Other
Mhm.
examples are people that are going through difficult phases in their life. For example, a very ill partner or parent or child that they are taking care of. They're in a reality experience that is so intense and potentially painful that they don't know how to navigate it because it is viscerally challenging, emotional, and painful.
Mm.
So when we go into, again, establishing a stronger internal foundation, we become more resilient to these unfoldings around us. We become differently present. We are no longer seeing ourselves as a savior to another person. We're no longer seeing ourselves as a victim to the circumstance. We're no longer seeing ourselves as a perpetrator to something or someone. When we get more and more into this neutral aligned state, we can show up more to other people, for other people, right? And that changes the game of living human life.
Yeah.
Now imagine a world where more people are internally aligned and internally
Mm.
resourced, internally resilient to
Mm.
show up for whatever emerges.
Yeah. The world would be completely different.
Exactly.
And I believe
Exactly.
that that's where we're headed towards. At least that's my mission, to be a light worker, a pillar of light on the planet, and supporting
That's right.
people to connect more deeply with their hearts and with love and
That's
with truth.
right. That's right.
Yes.
And believe
Yes.
it or not, one of our programs is called Pillars of Light.
Of course it is.
And one of our programs is called Earth Keepers because we also believe and we're guided to this grid work around the world that is
Mhm.
significant for consciousness evolution.
Mhm.
So, and the other one is becoming conscious creators, right? Like the
Mhm.
way you also bring to this world. So, how do we bring empowerment to humans and how do they become inspiring, unwavering lights in the world?
Yes. Yes. Sovereign beings of light.
That's
How
that's
do we
right.
do this? So let's tie this into manifestation, because as
Mhm.
human beings, yes, we're here in the physical plane. We want to consciously create, but not from a place of, I need the partner so that I'm good enough. I need the money so that I'm good enough. I need the house so I can show it off to my friends. And I absolutely, in the very beginning of my business, I was caught in that trap of external validation. I'm not
Mhm.
perfect. It still comes up for me today, but
Sure.
luckily not as intense as it was before. So let's talk about manifestation from a place of soul, from a place of heart, from a place of desire, rather than the need of something outside of me to fill this hole within.
Yes, and that is probably one of the most challenging journeys of a human being, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because if you start digging deeper and deeper and deeper, what is it that you need versus what is it that you want and desire? And where does that want and desire come from? And in the practice that we do, the guides take us into states of presence where there's absolutely no want or desire left. So you'd be asking, like, well, what would you want to create if there is nothing
There's
to
no
be
desire.
wanted? There is no
Yeah.
desire, there is no need, there is no want. And why would the guides bring you into that place? Well, it is something about wiring and programming internally. Because if you are in the present moment in a place where you feel you have everything that you could possibly need, you are so resourced internally that anything is possible. Infinite
Mm.
possibilities unfold. So you could technically create any reality you'd want. And what reality would you possibly want if there is nothing you'd desire? And interesting enough, what I have found is a reality of serving humanity is the reality I want to create. Service has become the guidance that I have been getting from my true self or from my internal alignment. Is through my service, my existence becomes multiplied in other people's evolution, growth, and healing and liberation.
And do you believe that everyone will reach that point? Similar to, I want to say it was Ram Dass who said nobody's saved unless everybody's saved. Like, do you think we all reach that level of consciousness where it's no longer self-service, but the service of the greater good until we've all reached that point?
I do believe that that is the bigger picture.
Mhm.
And I do believe that we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And it will take a moment for us to do step by step. What I'm noticing is, if I look around me, and maybe I'm biased because of the place that I'm in what I do, so many people around, even without spiritual practice, are popping like popcorn in terms of their awakening. So many people are going through this processes of, wow, what's the meaning of life? And what am I doing here? And this is not really something that I signed up for. And how can I be in a greater level of service to existence and to life? How can I find meaning in life? Right? And
Mhm.
so if this is happening around me, I'm sure it's happening all around the world. A lot of people are popping up and awakening. What do we do with a wave of millions of people awakening? Some people will be disillusioned, disheartened. Some people will be angry. Some people will be sad. Some people will be happy. Some people will be destabilized as a result of this awakening. So the journey is to create an infrastructure and a support system as communities, as practices, to support the awakening of all of those around us. And that is then lifting every individual and those people around them. And that hopefully, and with enough energy and alignment, will lift all of humanity.
That's the mission. That's the goal. And thank you so much for the work that you are doing. I would love you to speak a little bit into the community that you're building, the courses and programs that you've got going on
Mhm.
that is in alignment with the work that you're doing.
Thank you. So we run a nonprofit organization, as we have been guided to do. It's called Evolution One, focused on the evolution of consciousness in humanity. Thousands of people have gone through our courses and programs to become better versions of themselves. Some people become pillars of light in service to humanity. Some people become, and service can be a lot of things, right? It's not just like being a meditation teacher or a sound healer, but service can truly be at work or in family or in relationship. It can be service through presence, service through being grid workers and earth
Mhm.
keepers, service through being very resourced, aligned individuals that are bringing a new level of unconditional love into their world and their reality. So, all of these programs are geared towards that.
Mhm.
And community is spread all around the world, and we do anything from weekend workshops to multi-week courses and experiences in which transmissions are delivered, practices, and the community works together almost like a very close family to learn, to realize, to give support when challenging experiences emerge in this process. So I'm really, when I look back, if you would ask me like 6, 7, 8 years ago, is this what you would be doing? I'd say like, no, I don't think so. I don't know. And it is pretty much like I have to pinch myself that this is what we have created, and we are truly on mission and in alignment with what the guides have been saying, how to serve humanity. And we see it in how people respond.
And again, I think it's so beautiful and very much appreciate the work that you are doing here on the planet and very much appreciate you sharing your time and your energy and your wisdom here with me
Mm.
and everybody listening. There's a question that I like to ask all of my guests because it ties in nicely to the name of the podcast. What advice would you give the human being looking to manifest it all? And you can take
Mm.
that question as vague or specific as you desire.
What is it that I can manifest from a place of love, from a place of serving not just myself, but everyone around me in all of life and all of existence? How can it truly be a manifestation of win win win, where everyone receives the benefits of my manifestation power? And if we align ourselves towards that, the world will change.
Mm. Mic drop. That was so beautiful. That is certainly my intention every single day. I'm not
Mm,
perfect, but it is my intention. And it's my
beautiful.
hope and desire that others will take on that intention as well, how to manifest from a place of love.
Mm.
So, what do you have coming up on the horizon? The next round of your foundations course, is that accurate?
Yes.
Share with us a little bit
So
more.
foundations is something that I'm really, really excited about. It's kind of a bit like a flagship delivery that we have once a year,
Okay.
sometimes twice a year. And it's a live course that we deliver over a period of 2 weeks. And it is mind blowing. It'll change your life in the way you want it to change.
Mhm.
But most importantly, why it's called foundations is because in this delivery, the foundations of our mental operation, the foundations of our emotional, of our physical, of our energetic being decides on how we create our reality. It really almost is the most significant piece to continue developing spiritually, emotionally, mentally as a
Mhm.
human being. So having a solid foundation is the key to the next levels.
Yes.
And it's not just for someone who is just beginning. We've had people that have been on the journey for 40 years, 50 years, scholars, teachers that have been doing incredible work in the world. And they said, okay, fine, I'll try your foundations, right? And I personally was amazed that they would. So,
Mhm.
and those that have tried, they were like, holy cow, it really is taking me in my own practice, which is independent of
Mhm.
what we deliver, to the
Mhm.
next level. So we've found incredible fans of this work and devotees of this work in people and individuals who have been in service for many, many years, sometimes for decades, that were ready for a next level, but
Yeah.
haven't really had the right setup to get to that next level. And in
Mhm.
that way, our work is completely non-denominational and
Yeah.
unattached. We don't tell people, stop what you're doing or don't believe what you're believing so that you can believe this, like replacing one belief with another belief, right?
Mhm.
So it's about how can we establish a foundation, a new foundation within our being that will take us to that next level so we can serve even better.
And so would you say that, well, no, let me just ask you directly. Who would you say Foundations is for?
I think it's equally for someone who's just starting and, okay, I'm going through an awakening process, or I have a feeling within my soul that is calling me to get to a new, different state of being, but I don't really know how or where to start.
Mm.
And I don't want to sit around for a 5-minute meditation for a year or 5 years or 10 years and hope for change. I want an accelerated process that can be delivered and can make a change and difference in 2 weeks. Yes, for example, for you. Or someone who's been a practitioner for a long time and they're ready for a change, for a gear shift, for an up level. That's for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm already feeling the tingles like, ooh, this sounds exciting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And also in a very high frequency, high potentiated environment and community of long-term practitioners. So you feel like you're held in a bubble, a very safe, very high frequency and loving bubble as you're going through these processes of shifting and changing and aligning. Because ultimately we want you to be empowered. We want you to be resourced, and we want you to be aligned so you can be your best self and then you can shine in the world independent of me or the guides or any guide, that you can carry that foundation forward.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Like that just sounds phenomenal. That link will go in the show notes in addition to all of the links, so that people can get in touch with you and your team and learn more about Evolution One and the mission of the nonprofit, and also, of course, the foundations. Thank you. Truly. Thank you for
Oh,
carving out the
thank
time to
you.
be here today. If you move to Colorado, you have to let me know.
Even if I'm visiting, I will let you know.
Yes. Please, please, please. Please, please. And for those of you listening to the Manifest It All podcast, definitely make sure to explore all of the links in the show notes. Share this episode far and wide if you loved it. The greatest way to receive is to give. So certainly give the love, share the love, let us know what you thought. And as always, if a dream or desire was placed in your heart, you are meant and made to manifest it.